Everyone, it is now 9 o'clock, and we are going to call to order the Swanee River Water Management District Governing Board meeting and public hearing. We're available on YouTube. It's March 10th, and 2026. And if everybody would please rise, we'll say our invocation and then pledge.
Mr. Charles, before you pray, we need to pray for Robin's husband this morning. Yeah.
Okay. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord God. Father, first of all, we want to pray for Robin and her family today, Lord, that you keep your hand upon them as they seek answers to an issue in their family. Father, it's a good family, Father. We lift them up to you today. Father, we ask for wisdom and guidance on this board. Father, we face difficult decisions in the future, near future. And we pray that you'll be with us and be with staff as we try to find out what's best for the state of Florida. Father, we pray for your guidance, your governance of our tongue. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge Alrighty. Matilda, do you want to go ahead and give a roll call, please, ma'am?
Chair Johns,
Here.
Mr. Keith,
Here.
Mr. Swab,
Here.
Mr. Smith,
Here.
Mr. Sessions,
Here.
Mr. Thompson,
Here.
Mr. Lloyd,
Here.
Mr. Wheeler.
Here.
Chair Johns, we have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any amendments to our agenda today?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Is there a recommendation to approve the agenda?
Made that motion, Madam Chair.
Second.
We have a motion, and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carried. All right, at this time then, we will open to public comment. And it looks like we have one. Let's see here, Moses Klepper. Good morning.
Good morning. I guess I see y'all's agenda and all. There's things I'm interested in on that, but the primary thing is, of course, the elephant in the room. And so one thing I noticed y'all changed the venue location for the 19th meeting. I would hope, I'm not certain that everybody that might want to come would receive that notification. So I ask y'all to post a big sign out front of the facility here notifying of the change and starting as soon as possible, so everybody that can get notified will get notified of the change. And I'm sure y'all all want to hear from them. Although I've been to 4 meetings and I've only seen one, other than the paid folks that are in favor of this thing. You know, putting toxins in our aquifer, and even your experts and the other speakers, they admit or won't deny that there's going to be toxins injected into our drinking water, and y'all all morally are going to do us wrong. Y'all at least morally. Your moral duty is to block this thing, and I know there's typically not question and answers, but would somebody provide me with when the next phase vote will take place? I understand there's 3 phases of this catastrophe, and y'all have all approved it. The first phase, there's a second phase got to be approved. Is there a date scheduled for that decision?
I'm going to step out here and say I think there's a lot of misinformation that is running around out there, and certainly we would like for you to come on the 19th. I think you'll be able to hear a little bit more what is been done so far, which is very little. That we're in the very, very beginning stages of trying to meet our MFLs. And so please come and encourage everyone to be there on the 19th. And I think a lot of your questions will be answered.
Including when the second phase vote will take place?
Madam Chair, if I may, Mr. Kepler, the couple of things. One, I appreciate your recognition of where we're locating the meeting at, and we are going to begin outreach to let people know of the change of venue for that. The idea behind that is, one, because we are anticipating a larger crowd, hopeful that there will be, so people can get their questions answered by the experts there. And the parking, there'll be a lot more parking. I don't know if you've ever been out at the facility or not. It's a wonderful facility the university has there. They have a large pavilion. I think they can seat 300 people whenever they set up chairs there for that pavilion. And I was going to announce this at the end of the meeting, but we will be doing outreach on our website, our Facebook page, social media, the outreach to let people know the meeting on the 19th will be that day. For the foreseeable future, we do not have a vote coming to the board relative to this project, so I can't give you a date on that.
Okay.
It'll be as this project, just FYI, we're in that kind of that, or we'll be beginning like a 2-year research phase on the wetland determination, the location grid, and but all that information will be presented on the 19th.
All right, well, I've done a lot of research for you, and those of y'all paying attention, including your paid staff, again, there's only one that's been for it. So if you're interested in what the people want, you'll vote no. You'll stop this thing. You just block it out. And I'm not concerned about the relocation of the venue. I invite that too. I just am concerned that there will be many that won't be aware. So I didn't hear you include that you're willing to put a sign out. If you don't want to do it, I will make the sign up and put it out.
No, sir, we'll be glad to do that.
Thank you.
We'll have signage on our doors here
Well,
to
but I
direct
thi-
people, but we will also have signs out.
Yeah, if you
for
put
the
one out
meeting
where
itself.
people could see it going by.
And and I'm looking for Troy, here he is, our comms outreach person. But I would say that the same advertisement that we have used to initially talk about the meeting being on the 19th, and at first it was represented to be here, we'll use those same outlets to get the meeting out, the notice about the relocation of it.
I appreciate that, and I'm sure that'd be effective, but a lot of it's come word to mouth, and because I've spoken to many people since y'all changed it, and they were unaware. So that's why the signage, I'm thinking,
Yeah, I appreciate that, and certainly, we appreciate you being willing to share that information. I see Mr. Quarterman just walked in. I know he has a social media presence, so I'm sure he will advertise the meeting as well.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, oh, I've already said, okay, and only those of y'all that, this fits, be offended, please. Others, please realize them. Assuming that there are those on the board who have volunteered to serve, there are a majority of y'all who once had pure and good motives for taking this post. I understand it's unpaid. I respect that. I speak to those who have not taken their 30 pieces of silver to fulfill their moral and solemn duty to protect the waters of our aquifer. To those who may have taken those 30 pieces of silver, I don't necessarily expect you to comprehend what I'm referring to, nor do I hope to deter you from your agenda. But there's 80 y'all. I assume that it only takes the majority for a decision to be made. So I'm pleading with y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we have one more public comment card. Mr. Quarterman?
Thank you, and I promise someday I'll be on time.
Good morning.
John Quarterman, Suwannee Riverkeeper. I live in far north Florida, that'd be Lowndes County, Georgia, where people are as concerned about this Jacksonville wastewater treated into the Suwannee River Basin as people in Suwannee County, for example. I committed a faux pas when I stood up before the Senate Rules Committee. I held up a version of this, which is a petition. It turns out that you can't do that in the Senate Rules Committee. I didn't see that on the list of rules on their door, but apparently it's there. At that time, there were 1,632 signatures. As of this morning, a week later, it is 2013. This is for explain or stop piping Jacksonville treated wastewater into the Swanee River Basin. You're familiar, I think, with my views on this subject. I would like to compliment the district for actually maybe doing a couple of things. We've been asking for, one of the things it asked for is to hold a public hearing. Well, public meeting is exactly a public hearing, but I'm guessing that's the meeting you were talking about Thursday, is it? That's next week, Thursday, right? Yeah. Right. Yes, we will be advertising that, yes, and recommending that people come to it. And, oh, yes, and it says in here that y'all won't even declare a drought warning. You've done that. Congratulations. So I got to say, the phase 2 that you're proposing for today, doesn't seem to have much in the way of requirements. For example, it doesn't even require golf courses to use less water. Yes, it has lots of recommendations. That's great. And something that I noticed at the Senate Rules Committee is there were several farmers who stood up and said, if, this Water First North Florida thing doesn't happen, they'd have to reduce their usage by 30%. I didn't hear a single one of them say Jacksonville needs to reduce their usage. It's Jacksonville that's the biggest problem. Jacksonville is the biggest water user. Jacksonville needs to find a way. And there are ways, such as if the city of Philadelphia can use the water from the Schuylkill River, the famously not so clean Schuylkill River for drinking water, Jacksonville could use water from the St. Johns River. And in South Florida, there are 41 desalination plants that use brackish or seawater for drinking water. Jacksonville could do the same. If they can afford $1.4 billion for a football stadium, they can afford to desalinate seawater. And they don't have to do it all at once, and they don't have to take 12 years to start like Water First North Florida. They can start with some small pilot plants and work up. And while I hear that it's considered too expensive now, if Water First North Florida can plan to take 12 years to figure out how to make the water clean enough, Jacksonville can start small and take 12 years to figure out how to make desalination cheap enough. So that's what I have to say for today. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you, sir. Okay, is there anyone else for public comment? If not, we'll close public comment and go right on to our consent agenda. If everybody had time to study up, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. All right, let's see here. Do we have rain in the forecast?
Morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning.
Fingers crossed, we could see some rain this probably Thursday, so
Good,
we'll keep it wishful, so. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to present the hydrologic conditions report for February 2026. I'd like to thank Katie McBride for sending me this great photo of Peacock Springs. This is P2. This is the second of the big springs out there. She went to West Skiles Peacock Springs State Park to service some of our installed continuous monitoring equipment, and she snapped this photo. It's very representative of what we've had to deal with this ongoing drought. You can kind of see throughout the back here, a lot of exposed roots for the low water, and then also some exposed limestone as well, kind of showing that how low the conditions are out there. Like I said, it's something we've been having to deal with, and I thank Katie for sending it over. I think it's also a good way for us to start our February 2026 hydrologic conditions report. All right, rainfall for February 2026, we had a district-wide average of 1.7 inches. That was 55% less than that long-term average of 3.8 inches. Now, we did actually increase our deficit from the end of January. At the end of January, it was 14.8 inches. We moved that window of time forward. From February 2025, we lost 2.3 inches of rainfall out of our calculation, and we only picked up 1.7 inches. So that now has us up to 15.4 inches of rainfall deficit for the past 12 months. Taking a look at the map, this 1.5 to 2 inch range in green does incorporate the district-wide average for the month. I wanted to point out that most of the rainfall is really in the top half of the district. We did have some down in extreme southern Levy County as well, but most of the rain was up in the northern part of our district. We did see throughout the southern and kind of eastern part of our district those less than average amounts, that 1 to 1.5 inch range in the dark blue, and then that light blue has less than 1 inch of rainfall. We did see some blue up through here, but for the most part, this is average or greater amounts of rainfall. So as on the flip side of that, 2 to 2.5 inches in that orange color, 2.5 to 3 inches in red, and we did see some areas of more than 3 inches of rain. This kind of little prong shape here that goes from Taylor County through Lafayette over the river into Suwannee, and then also down in extreme southern Levy County, right near our district boundary. We saw more than 3 inches of rainfall for February 2026. Rainfall for the 15th of February, that was our biggest rainmaker that we had for the month of February. We actually got 0.8 of an inch of rain in this one day on the 15th, the day after Valentine's Day. So we actually, that was 49% of our rainfall for the month. So out of the 1.7 inches, we got 0.8 inches of rainfall in this one day. But once again, it was kind of skewed, the rainfall, so most of the rain is occurring from Taylor County up through Baker County with some higher amounts, the 1.5 to 2 inch in orange, and then the red showed more than 2 inches of rainfall going from Taylor to Lafayette into Suwannee County for that single day of rain. This is our departure from normal precipitation. This is from the 7th of February to the 8th of March. A few different categories that we've got throughout our district. We've got a little spot here in the center where Suwannee County, Columbia County, and Hamilton County are, anywhere from breaking even to 3/4 of an inch of rainfall deficit. As we start to go outwards a little bit, we kind of see this outline here, which is that light orange color, and that's 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches of rainfall deficit. And then on the outskirts of our district, kind of extreme northwest and east, and even down in the south, we're seeing 1.5 to 2.25 inch of rainfall deficit for the past 30 days. We did see some red spots as well, one over in Levy into Gilchrist County, and then almost splitting Jefferson County in half here. We saw red, which is that 2.25 to 3 inches of rainfall deficit. So depending on where you are in the district, it was very variable as far as deficits were concerned for the past 30 days. This is figure 1 in the report. I wanted to show this again. I showed this at the last board meeting, but I thought it was important to bring back up again. So as I mentioned earlier, that 2.3 inches of rainfall for February 2025 was not used in this calculation, but we did pick up that 1.7 inches for February 2026. Out of these 13 months, only 2 months were actually at or above the average, which is in this dashed line here. March had almost 6 inches of rain for March 2025, and May was right on target for the average for May. Elsewhere, we went through the year 2025 into 26. We were well below average on most of our months throughout that time period. Something else I wanted to point out too, when I come to the board next month, if we don't make up this close to 6 inches for March 2026, we're going to increase our deficit once again. It may be kind of a hefty increase, so let's have our fingers crossed that we can get some more rain for the March 2026. Stream flow conditions for February 2026 actually showing 2 categories, either below normal to begin and end the month, that's a 10th to 25th percentile, or the much below normal, that less than 10th percentile. Really, it was kind of in those 2 categories for both, but only a few gauges, one on Fargo, one on White Springs, and Branford, all on the Suwannee, actually did fall. They went from the below normal at the beginning of the month to the much below normal, but everything else kind of stayed in one of those 2 low categories throughout February 2026. These are our upper Florida and aquifer levels. This is the end of January. I wanted to show this to compare with February, but what we started seeing in January was that 10th to 25th percentile in orange. We started seeing that kind of taking over a good portion of the map here, but we did still have quite a few wells that were in the 25th to 75th percentile. We did have 10 wells on this map that were in below 10th percentile in red. And those include wells in Dixie County, Gilchrist County, Columbia, one over in Suwannee, Lafayette, Madison, and I believe down in Levy County also had one as well. So if we fast forward 1 month to February, we really see more of those wells that were originally in that 25th to 75th percentile back in January have now fallen into the 10th to 25th percentile. So we see a good bit more orange on this map than we did in the previous month. We're now up to 11 wells that are below 10th percentile. The new one, I think, that was kind of popped up this month was one over in Union County, but we've got still wells in Dixie County, Gilchrist County, that one in Suwannee, Madison, Columbia as well, and then outside of our district in Alachua, and then down into Levy County, all showing that below 10th percentile for the month of February. This is our district-wide Upper Florida and aquifer conditions. These are the percentiles that I showed. I showed this last month, but I wanted to show this again just to kind of keep the board updated as to where we are. So as of this past Saturday, we're now down to 19.6. So basically, if you round, it's basically the 20th percentile. We've been bouncing around anywhere from the 19th to about the 21st percentile for a few weeks now. It'll drop, we'll get a little bit of rain, it'll go up and then drop again. So we've kind of oscillated a little bit there toward the end. But I wanted to show that to compare with our last dry time, which was prior to Hurricane Irma coming through. This was at 27.2%. Back in 2017, that was June 4th. That was the lowest we got before Irma. And then, of course, this is the lowest we had back in 2012. We were down near the 1%. So just kind of gives you an idea of about where we're at this point now. This is a U.S. Drought Monitor. This was released last Thursday, March 5th. Really just get kind of taken aback by the fact that most of Florida is in extreme drought right now. And also every county has at least one characteristic of drought within the state of Florida, which is highly unusual. Anywhere from moderate drought to severe drought to extreme drought, the entire state is under some sort of drought warning at this point. The next one that's updated should be this week. I don't look for the exceptional drought to come out, but I know in the next few weeks, if we continue this pattern of low rainfall, they could introduce that exceptional drought back into either the Suwannee and or Santa Fe basins because we've been extremely dry over in those areas. All right, I wanted to talk about El Niño's southern oscillation probabilities. This was issued back in February, but currently we're right here. We're still under that La Niña. As we can tell, we're still very, very dry. But we do have a 60% chance of switching over into those El Niño southern oscillation neutral conditions sometime before April. So February, March, April is that 3-month window there. And that looks like that's going to continue through the summer into probably late summer, June, July, August. We've got about a 55% chance of that continuing on down the road. But what's interesting is we do see El Niño start to have a higher percentile, probably 61, 62% there at the end, September, October, November, which would be really good for our district twofold. The first, El Niños typically for our area on average will provide us a little bit more rainfall. And I think the weather's just a little bit cooler, especially in the wintertime. But it also, it helps to inhibit formations of hurricanes over in the Atlantic. I know it'll be a little bit late if it comes in September, but that may be around the peak of hurricane season. So we'll keep our eye peeled for any El Niño signs coming up probably toward the end of the year. With that said, National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration's seasonal outlook for March through May does have us with equal chances of either above normal, near normal, or below normal rainfall. It's one of those that we're switching over into those neutral conditions, so the models can't really predict exactly what's going to happen because we don't have the impediment from La Niña, or we don't have the more water from El Niño, so it's kind of a toss-up. And above normal temperature probabilities are predicted for March through May, and that's about 33 to 40%. That's leaning above. Most of the United States is really going to see warmer temperatures for March through May the next 3 months. All right, our February 2026 summary, we had a rainfall amount of 1.7 inches, representing 55% lower than that long-term average of 3.8 inches. We did go from a deficit of 14.8 at the end of January to a 15.4 inch deficit at the end of February. Once again, that's because we moved that window of time forward and didn't quite pick up as much rainfall as we lost in the calculation. District-wide Upper Florida and aquifer levels they actually fell from the 22nd percentile in January down to the 20th, and that's a median level decrease across our monitored wells of about 0.4 of a foot. As of March 7th, that was this past Saturday, we're at 19.6, so basically the 20th percentile is where we're sitting right now. La Nina conditions are going to continue probably for just a tad bit longer, but we do look for a transition to El Nino Southern Oscillation Neutral at about 60% chance sometime before now in April. Those El Nino Southern Oscillation Neutral is going to persist through the summer. We got about a 56% chance from June to August. And then looking on into the near future, we could potentially have an El Nino on the horizon, so that would be good for us. And finally, the entire district is covered by extreme drought as of this latest update from the U.S. Drought Monitor. And interestingly, all Florida counties currently have at least one category of drought on the map itself. And I expect for that to continue its degradation unless we start getting a little bit more rainfall. So with that, Madam Chair, I'll take any questions that the board may have.
Okay, any questions? Yes.
Madam Chair. Robbie, I know we addressed this last month, but could you go back to that slide on the aquifer levels based on historic numbers? So would it, if I'm looking at 2012, then we were at below 10% this time of year in 2012?
Madam Chair? Yes, sir, that's right. We were probably about this time, so that'd be January, February, March, April. It was probably early summer, maybe. Yeah, so close to this time. Yeah, we were on our way down for sure in 2012.
So we bottomed out in
Awesome.
May, and then we got the rain in June, and that's,
I'm sorry, I was looking at 2011. You're absolutely right. Yes, we are. We were, I think this was, of course, May, so we were just below 10th percentile. Yeah, it was probably around in there. That's correct. And then once Debbie kind of hit, it took a little bit to recover because we went back up to about this point here, but it really shot up to about 65%, I think was the highest it got at that time.
Robbie, I know that we've got data from 2012, and it was an extremely dry year. Is there other years that I know that we have flood years like in the 70s and other areas. Do you have data for years in the past, and did it get lower than it did in 2012, or drier?
Madam Chair? We do have, so a lot of these values come from the old hydro reports that have been produced probably since the late 90s. We could probably check back there. I think as far as going back to the 70s and 80s, I'm not aware that we would have that because I don't think we were doing that at that time. I can check, but I'm not 100% sure.
I know we have flood data, but
Yeah,
I
sure.
guess that's more devastating to a flood than a drought.
Correct.
As far as, damage to people's stuff. But I was just curious, what the trend line is, how, is what this is looking like. I know we got a snapshot between 11 and 26, which is a relatively short period of time. I mean, it makes a good graph. It's very interesting to see that. I'd love to see the data. Okay, how often does this cycle happen in a 100-year period? Is this normal? I know that we have data for La Nina and El Nino, and we kind of have an idea what that does, and I know we measure that right there. But I mean, what does a longer term period look like? And I know we're probably not going to have as good as many points on a graph as what we have, but what does that look like?
Let me go back and look at some of the old reports, and I can see about extending this backwards as far as I can.
I don't mean to get you any extra work or anything.
No, that's no problem. I don't mind.
I would love to see what
Don't mind.
that trend line looks like, because the public and the board and staff, a lot of times, we have very short memory, right? We can't see what the big picture, and I like to see what the big picture. I mean, same thing with your map here that has the Cody Escarpment on it. We know that was the ancient coastline. We know that, I know that historical data point. You follow what I'm saying?
Sure.
I'd love to see that historical data point of when we started keeping records, what that really looks like.
Okay. Yeah, I don't mind. I'll go back and we'll start pulling some of those values from the old reports, and I'll extend that back as far as I can.
Madam Chair, the other thing that we can do, just to get a sense of the longer-term history of groundwater levels in our district, is to look at those long-term wells that are on the final page of the hydro
Correct.
conditions report itself, the physical report that you have there. If you flip that over, in terms of where we have well data, that takes us back at those individual locations as far back as we have the data to go.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's a
fine.
slightly longer lens to look at some of that information in, and it is variable throughout our district, as you can see from that.
I know Tom Marty at one time was looking at tree rings, a long time ago in Hartwood, right? And I know that we have various ways to look at that, and I'm not asking you to go back and look at the ancient, but I think over 100 years will be really good to really see what that trend line really looks like. I mean, is this something that we can see that's coming every 10 years or what? Because, I mean, on the flip side, and I know that we're concerned because we're in the drought, but on the flip side, look how many flood events that we have versus the drought events, right? There's more flooding that we have than there is dry times.
Sure.
Even though we're in the valley right now, it is what it is. Can't dispute the data.
True. Any other
Thank you, Ms.
questions?
Robbie.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
All right, our next item is Tom Reeves. Do you have anything for us, Tom?
Proud to say I do not.
Oh, dear. All right, Dr. Brown.
That's what the whole thing is.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you again for accommodating the shift in schedule here for the Water Resources Division update. I just wanted to be closer to the hydrologic conditions report. I think the main thing that we're tracking will be the public hearing that we have, unless there's any other questions just on division business in general. I think we can transition to the hearing then.
Okay. Any questions from the board for Dr. Brown? All right, we'll go ahead and transition to the public hearings. This is agenda item number 10, and it's for the approval order number 26-002, Phase 2 water shortage. Governing board will now hold this public hearing for the approval. Ms. Amy?
Okay, thank you. So I just have a brief presentation. I think you just saw the data overview from Robbie, so I just wanted to take you through a recap of where we are and what our recommendations are for the Phase 2 water shortage that we're recommending. Just to give us a regional picture of what's going on around the state, as was mentioned earlier, the Suwannee District entered a water shortage advisory recommending voluntary reductions back in January of 2026. Northwest Florida is also in a Phase 1 or voluntary advisory stage. They entered that in February of 2026. The St. Johns District was just going into a Phase 1 water shortage in February of 26, but they have now progressed into a modified Phase 2 water shortage, seeking similar restrictions to what we have or what we're recommending to the board today. And then the Southwest Florida Water Management District has also entered a modified Phase 2 water shortage as of February of 2026. So again, as Robbie mentioned, there's a statewide deficit in rainfall relative to the long term, and we're just asking for these reductions to try to make sure that we're being efficient with our water use during these dry times. This is just a refresher, and I've gone through this a couple times, and so what we would be doing to progress to the Phase 2, this would be where there would be a combination of voluntary and regulatory measures seeking to reduce demand. So that's the contrast to where we were in January, is that there are some additional regulatory measures that are being proposed for this district. This is the declaration as it was for the advisory, and again, asking to reduce and defer water use and conserve water to plan for extended drought, reducing landscape irrigation, and then making sure conservation plans are fully implemented. As we move to the Phase 2 advisory, we're proposing to continue those activities. And again, there are recommendations to continue to limit intensive cleaning activities, implement water conserving devices inside and outside, reduce the use of overhead or high-pressure, high-volume systems, and then, again, emphasizing that permittees really need to be looking at those conservation plans and looking at their water use and preparing in the event that we might need to move to additional reductions in water use. In terms of the regulatory components that we would be seeking right now, what we're trying to do is retain the 1 day per week landscape irrigation. Typically, because we have now entered into the daylight savings time, we would shift to the 2 day week irrigation. That, again, that discretionary water use is one of the things that we can change. And so we're requesting that we limit the frequency of landscape irrigation to no more than 1 day per week. Also prohibiting HOAs from requiring increased water use to meet aesthetic standards while we're in this drought. Restricting the water use for washing and cleaning streets, driveways, and sidewalks. Restricting pressure cleaning to low-volume methods, and then limiting any augmentation to what is necessary to preserve the integrity of surface water bodies and associated habitats. This hearing is a required part of our rule. That's where we've noticed it as a hearing. And if there are any changes to our water shortage through time, we would come back and do another hearing to update formally on the recommended changes to those rules. We have already started to reach out to just notify our communities that we're moving in, that this consideration is occurring today, and that we may be requesting their assistance in the water shortage. We're continuing to monitor the drought conditions. At this point, the way that this advisory is worded, it would run through July, but would allow the executive director or the board to take action to remove the Phase 2 advisory in the event that we have improved conditions. These are the rule implementation considerations, and we've talked through them before, so I won't dwell on these here, but just guiding us on what we need to be considering. And again, in our district, one of the challenges we have is that there are not a lot of alternative water supplies that people can seek to use in place of groundwater. And so even as we're attempting to conserve groundwater, we can't offer up an easy alternative, and that's where we're trying to seek the reductions in discretionary use as the first tier of this advisory. The declaration process, again, it was defined that we would do the public hearing. We will be doing notification of elected officials and municipalities, as well as noticing our permittees. We have allowed time also for newspaper noticing, so the effective date of this, if approved by the board, would not be until March 17th to allow us time to notice in the newspapers as is required by our rule. And it would be in effect until modified or rescinded. One of the components that is in this Phase 2 advisory would allow the executive director in between the regularly scheduled governing board meetings to make a modification that would then come back to the board as a part of a hearing at the next scheduled board meeting. That will allow us to be a little bit more nimble in either direction if things improve or if things worsen, that we can make those interim decisions. So with that, if there are not any questions, I will read the recommendation, but I'll pause here and see if there are questions.
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
just have one matter of clarification. I read the entire rule. It seems like, and Mr. Quarterman made some reference to golf courses earlier. I read in the rule somewhere where if the golf course is not using reclaimed water, they have to go back to every other day on their watering. They, like 9 holes, for an 18-hole golf course, they do 9 holes on the even days and the back 9 on the odd days, so which basically cuts their water use in half. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then the other thing is that if they're using reclaimed water, that rule is not in effect.
Correct. If they're using reclaimed water, that rule would not be in effect. In terms of the irrigation for the golf courses, we did not put that specific element into this Phase 2 rule, is that correct?
David King, Office of Water Use Services. So that's in there is to the extent possible, they're there to do that. So it's
So it's a
required, but it's to the
I'm
extent
sorry.
that they can manage to do it.
So it's a recommended rule, not a required rule, right?
Right, I think there's a lot of items in there that are borderline, and I think that's where we added that provision where the executive director could implement some of those ones that are on the fence, depending on which direction this may go.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that point.
For the Suwannee District specifically, golf courses are not a major component of our landscape water use. And landscape water use is a very small component of our overall water use. But again, we're trying to encourage those golf courses that we do have to defer the planting and then to limit their irrigation. But at this point, we haven't advanced that into being something that we would seek to enforce, like seek enforcement on versus asking for reductions in use.
Any other questions? All right.
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
sir.
one question. Dr. Brown, is it Phase 3 when we get to the point where we're demanding the reduction of water?
So there are additional regulatory measures that would come in, either within the Phase 2, we still have discretion that we could increase required versus voluntary actions. And then Phase 3, again, just increases the impact of those reductions on the permitted water users. So we have the discretion within Phase 2 to add additional requirements. And then Phase 3 would further restrict the water use, again, with a focus on minimizing losses and then preserving the aquifer to the extent that we're tracking the aquifer levels.
So is Phase 3 still a voluntary?
So in both Phase 2 and Phase 3, there are a combination of regulatory measures. Go back here. So these components that are listed on this slide and are in the order would represent regulatory components of the Phase 2 water shortage. In addition to the regulatory components that are here, there are additional actions that we are requesting of the regulated public to defer water use, to limit water use, to limit discretionary decisions. But these are regulatory requirements associated with this Phase 2, and additional regulatory requirements could be added to the Phase 2.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
for just another matter of clarification, this board back in 2012 never got to Phase 2, right? I think I was understood that y'all were going to, or the district was going to implement Phase 2, and about that time, we got got Debbie.
I think it was fully approved.
Yeah, as I recall, Madam Chair, if I recall, Mr. Thompson, it was actually, they were actually moving to a Phase 3. As I recall the governing board memo, which I actually happen to have right here from May 18th, 2012. And it was Declaration of Water Shortage Modified Phase 3. And it's got the order number on here as well. And there are additional regulatory constraints moving into that phase.
No further questions.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions? No?
Madam Chair, oh, go ahead.
Before public comment, I think if you would just go ahead and read the recommendation, then I'll open for public comment.
Okay, the recommendation would be to approve Water Shortage Advisory Order Number 26-002.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, we will open for public comment. Please state your name.
Thank you, ma'am. Moses Klepper, Swanee County resident. I found something interesting in y'all's notification about this. It says, well, I highlighted it and it went away. The term polished, the water is going to be further polished. I don't think that's a very, and it's in the same sentence it uses scientific research. That's not a very scientific phrase, so it's insulting actually to people paying attention. That might want to change that word. I'm glad the fella brought up about the El Nino. It rains, it dries. We're in a drought season. We're panicking over a drought season. I'm concerned about it. Somebody else mentioned Jacksonville needing to restrict. They're the bigger user. They should, whatever we're doing, they should have to do as much as, if they're drawing 3 times the water or more, they should have to do 3 times the work to reduce their usage. I heard misinformation every meeting I've been to. Y'all side, or the side, has claimed that we're getting misinformation. From our ranks, we're getting misinformation. I hate even the thought that it's us against y'all. I once believed before I ever made a meeting here that it was us. You know, now I'm starting to question some of y'all. So the misinformation, like, that, no, I haven't heard stated exactly with the research done, exactly what percentage of those toxins are going to remain in that injected water. So that's going back. But one of the reasons I wanted to speak in this Phase 2 part, if we were to prepare by researching and drilling strategic wells with effective filters to prevent the vents or the surface level opening from being clogged, like I know has happened many times in these floods we get, even with the light rains. And I have a hole right now that I created in my yard, and in that half inch of rain, I've got a foot of water standing. If there was a well, that foot of water would go down into the aquifer, you know? So there's low-lying areas everywhere, you know? So going in there and opening up some more, and there needs to be a filter system to keep those darn vents from clogging, you know, which we don't have right now. Or hire somebody at $50,000 a year to go out there in a boat at the day after the flood and open all them vents up, you know, let that water recharge. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment?
Hello again. Maybe you could do more than this, but what you're doing appears to be more than the St. John's District is doing. This seems backwards because, once again, Jacksonville is the biggest water user. Jacksonville should be having to reduce their water usage the most. Now, you heard there's no obvious alternative supplies for the Swanee River Basin. There are obvious alternative supplies for the St. John's Basin. Get it out of the river, get it out of the sea. You won't drain the sea dry. And if the two districts want to build a pipe, how about build a pipe for desalinated seawater from Jacksonville into the Swanee River Basin? That might be clean. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comment? Questions from the board? All right, there being none, I'll call for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go right on into Mr. Alexander.
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, those in attendance, good morning. I will be brief. For business and community services, I would ask that you find items number 11 through 24 on this morning's agenda. Item number 11 will be a facilities update given by our Chief of the Office of Administration, Mr. Ben Glass. And items number 12 through 19, those are related to our agriculture cost share. Those were approved by way of consent agenda, along with items number 20, 22, and 23. So thank you for those approvals. And then lastly, we have items number 21 and 24, which are informational items. And Mr. Leroy Marshall is here if you have any question on those. So, Ben?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm happy to report to you this morning that we are complete with the project in the building, the main building across the breezeway. Everything's done. We've gone through our punch list. The contractors buttoned everything up. We came in Came in right at budget, so no, didn't have to come back to you all for any additional funds to address the building. Be happy to walk anyone around if you'd all like to see the changes on the exterior, what you don't see from the parking lot. After the meeting, happy to take anyone around who'd like to see it, and happy to answer any questions.
Ben, I want to tell you, I appreciate the fact that you guys made a good budget and the contractor stuck to it. Thank you.
Sir.
It doesn't irritate me too bad for y'all to come back and ask for some more money. But it means that you guys are living within your means and you did a great job on the estimate and the contractor did a great job, and I thank you very much for that.
Sir, appreciate that.
And it looks great.
Thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a Wawa anymore. I appreciate it. I was wondering where I need to go get gas or a sub sandwich or.
Dear. Any questions for Ben? All right. Job well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Ben, I noticed that the building out here looks like it's got some clear seal on the side of it, you know, because it's got some spots, but I guess we're working on this side here. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. The Division of Outreach and Operations has 6 items for your consideration today. Items number 25, 28, and 29 are for informational purposes. Items number 26 and 27 will be presented by our Communications Chief, Troy Roberts, and item number 30 will be presented by our Land Management Chief, Lorna Radcliffe.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Tuesday to all y'all. I'm happy that it's warming up outside and we're getting a little bit of that spring weather, even though I say we may be getting a little bit of cold back in the forecast next week. Happy March, happy April. We've got 2 big events coming up in April that I'm going to be requesting approval for, that we proclaim these months as these specific events. But also wanted to thank you for the water shortage Phase 2. In preparation of that, we've developed some materials that we will start utilizing as soon as this afternoon. So I didn't want y'all to approve something and us not have anything ready to go. So we've been working on that to make sure people are aware of the new phase that we're entering and ensure that they're doing the best they can to conserve water. All right, so first off, we're going to start with a Water Conservation Month proclamation. Declaring April as Water Conservation Month will mark the 28th year of this important recognition. Many local governments, water management districts, and other entities have demonstrated their support by adopting resolutions or proclamations designating Water Conservation Month in their communities. The district's strategic focus on community partnerships and water resource project implementation, dedication to improved efficiencies and conservation, and sustainable management of district water resources illustrate the commitment to water conservation and vitality in our region. As part of the effort, the district encourages local communities to issue a commitment to water conservation and offers outreach tools for communities to share with their constituents. This designation provides an opportunity to increase public awareness about the importance of water conservation and of following the district's year-round water conservation measures. It also encourages citizens to develop lifelong conservation habits that will help preserve and protect our state and local water resources now and into the future. And obviously, it could not come at a better time right now as we are highlighting the need for water conservation. So therefore, staff recommends the governing board proclaim April 2026 as Water Conservation Month.
We have a recommendation.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
Moving on, April is a busy month for us, obviously. In recent years, the Florida legislature has adopted resolutions recognizing the importance of Florida springs and natural resources by declaring the month of April as Springs Protection Awareness Month. The district contains more than 450 documented springs, including the highest concentration of freshwater springs in Florida and the highest concentration of first magnitude springs in the United States. The district is defined by our world-renowned springs, which of course includes 14 of the 30 outstanding Florida springs. Springs provide habitat for wildlife and plant species, as well as natural, recreational, and economic value. Recreational use of springs supports ecotourism in the region, which include, of course, swimming, fishing, diving, kayaking, canoeing, wildlife viewing, and other activities associated with these wonderful water resources. The estimated total economic benefits associated with recreational use support over 1,000 full and part-time jobs and generates $9.4 million annually in economic output. And that number has surely gone up over recent years. That's a bit of an older study, and we don't have a new one yet, but we know that number continues to increase every year. Increasing the public awareness of the district's ongoing work to protect springs is a key part of our mission, and so we ask the board to proclaim April 2026 as Springs Protection Awareness Month.
Okay, we have a recommendation.
Make that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. I'll be presenting item number 30, found on OPS page 13. In August of 2025, the Gilchrist County Sheriff's Office contacted the district to request special use of district-owned lands for placement of equipment. Special use authorization 2425-23 was issued and expires July 30th of 2026. Due to the extended length of time that the equipment needs to be on the property, on district lands, an agreement is required. Both on the minimal amount of land needed for the equipment, based on the minimal amount of land that's needed for the equipment, a cooperative agreement would be entered into mutually at no cost. The cooperative agreement term would be for 10 years with an extension option of another 10 years. This map shows the locations, which is the 129 bridge and 47 bridge tracks. The recommendation is to authorize the executive director to enter onto a cooperative agreement with the Gilchrist County Sheriff's Office for placement of equipment on the 129 bridge and 47 bridge tracks. And I'll take any questions if there's.
What are the cameras for?
Law enforcement uses them for reading,
License plates?
License plates.
Big brother.
They want people coming in and going out of the county.
Okay, all right, I hear you. Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, are these devices already installed?
Madam Chair? Yes, sir.
Oh, they've already been doing it. Okay, I might need to get a tinfoil hat here. I make the recommendation that we enter into agreement.
I second.
We have a recommendation and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, and one last thing. Last week, we did have our land management review team meeting at Holton Creek, and I just want to thank the board for having representation there. Mr. Thompson was available to attend, and we had positive reviews, and I will share the full report with you in April.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair, Board, that concludes our items today.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions for the outreach on our 19th meeting or anything like that?
Well, yeah, I think that covered it. I guess we're gonna have a board comment here in a second anyway.
We can do that later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Happy to accommodate any schedule y'all. Well, good morning, Madam Chair and Board. And before I begin, I failed to introduce one of our guests this morning earlier, but I would like to introduce Shannon Roberts. Shannon is the director for the the relatively newly formed North Florida Water Utility Authority here, primarily operating with Suwannee County and Columbia County. But we're glad to have him here. We've met with him a couple of times, talking about the district business and projects and what the water utility and how we can interact with each other. So we're glad and appreciative that he is here this morning. For it. I did want to mention the legislative process right now. As I think the board is well aware, I know Amy has given some updates from time to time. But the minimum flow, minimum water level rule that we have worked cooperatively with St. John's and also the Department of Environmental Protection has been working its way through the ratification process with DEP primarily leading that effort going forward. And so that rule, the Senate convened once again yesterday on their package for DEP and with our LSFI rule with that. And they approved it. It's been approved throughout the process, both within the House and the Senate. They did an amendment to the rule itself. Wasn't anything involved with the actual, I'm sorry, they did an amendment to the bill, not our rule. It was for some other item that was part of the DEP bill with that. And so that amendment will go back. That causes it to go back to the House and be voted upon. And hopefully that will conclude the ratification process for the LSFI rule going forward. There's been a lot of confusion and information out there. I know some of you have asked me about it, about taking a vote on this Water First project. And I think that has been misconstrued with the vote for the rule ratification that the legislature has been involved with, similar to the board approving the rule in previous board meetings with that. Just as a point of clarification, while I've got the microphone, the North Florida, or I'm sorry, the Water First project that there is a lot of social media interaction about is only one of several projects that are included in the prevention and recovery strategy. Okay, and that prevention and recovery strategy is required to identify if you have an MFL that's in a prevention state or a state of recovery, which is where we're at with the Santa Fe and Chautauqua, some of the stations there. You have to have that prevention and recovery strategy developed and projects identified to accompany that rule ratification process. As I think I mentioned earlier to one of the board members, that almost goes as an appendix to the rule as its part. And I think there's been a lot of information out there that people aren't clear about as to, you know, they're voting on that project. Well, no, that wasn't the case. I was in Tallahassee last week. I think Senator Bradley did a great job making that clear, that the legislature, the Senate at that meeting, was not voting on that project. They were voting for the ratification of the rule itself. And so I just want to make that clear, just for everybody in case you get additional questions about that with the process on there. I think that's about everything that I've got, Madam Chair. I did mention earlier, and thanks to Mr. Kepler, about the mention of our meeting coming up on the 19th. So we are looking forward to that and preparing for that meeting. I hope it's a great opportunity to provide education through the various stations that we'll have set up to answer questions and allow people to offer comments about the project and certainly the Lower Santa Fe and Chautauqua MFL, anything else that they would like to comment about district business with that. And with that, Madam Chair, that's all I've got.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
Hugh, I appreciate the clarification on the rule. I think some of the misconceptions out there is we operate under the rules also, and there's certain things we have to do. A lot of this seems maybe repetitive to people, but it is a checks and balance within government to assure that 30 pieces of silver are not being spread around. It's a slow process, but I would like to, from my side, and I won't speak for the board, but I think the board would probably agree, that Caitlin and Troy be given the leadway to get the information out to the people, including a sign out front to notify the people of where the meeting will be. But I might suggest some just basic language to the people at the meeting about why we're in the situation that we're in, what Swanee River needs out of a project with St. John's. Some people believe that St. John's is just forcing all this on us, and that's not the case. We need a sustainable amount of water on our side of the divide for the spring help. So that's why we're involved in this project. We are in a information finding period. We've approved staff to be involved in an information finding period to see if this is even viable, if it's the best route for us to take. But I would suggest some language like this a week from Thursday that people just really, the concerns you have are the same concerns that we have. And we are going through the process to answer the question, but you're asking us for answers now that we don't have. That's why we go through the process. We're trying to find the science behind it. But if we have meetings and all we give the people is science, they don't understand. They have a mindset that Jacksonville's doing something bad to us, and that's not the case here. So, are there other alternatives to consider? Yes, and we will consider that during this time. But I think that's where people, I think the term Jacksonville and has a detrimental effect on the citizens of this side of the divide. They think Jacksonville takes a lot of advantage. We all agree that everybody can do a better job of conserving water. Our farmers, our agricultural producers on our side of the divide do a great job. They work hard at it. We would expect St. John's to do the same in their district. And I pray that people will just calm down, let the process work, put a little faith in your government, and understand that this board, and I know I can speak for this board, is going to absolutely not be a part of anything that's detrimental to the drinking water, the springs, the health of the environment of this beautiful part of Florida that we're charged with protecting. That's my spiel.
Can I add one more thing to that?
Sure can.
If the concern, too, is about policy that St. John's River Water Management District controls, like maybe water usage in Jacksonville and other things, maybe those concerns should be told to the St. John's River Water Management District Board instead of Swanee, that have nothing to do with that. That's something that I might suggest, too, that comments made here that we have no control over may be better made at St. John's River Water Management District when they meet once a month, like today. I think they meet at the same time that we do. So their meetings are open to the public too, and I think it'd be wise maybe to talk about water policy that Jacksonville uses and conservation and other things that, great suggestions here, but we have no control over that. We don't make policy that St. John's River Water Management does, and I think it'd be wise for folks to make those comments there as well, not just here.
I agree.
And I agree 100% with what Mr. Keith just said. We don't want to do any detriment, but we want the process to work out. And back one more thing that you said, we need to trust our government to work. I know that's hard to do. I don't trust our government to work very well, but that's the whole point of having a citizen-appointed board from the governor to be able to hold people accountable, to make sure that the process is worked out. And I have very confidence in our scientific staff as well as everybody else that works at this district to do their job professionally. But like you said, Charles, let the process work itself out. And we haven't approved anybody to buy any land. We haven't approved anybody to take an excavator out there and start digging a wetland. We haven't approved anybody to put a pipeline in. Only thing we've approved is the data.
Catherine.
And I have a problem with the price tag on that. That's expensive for that. But you know what? It needs to be done. So therefore, that's why we voted on that. And the record needs to show that. Now, I have one more question, and maybe you already said that, and maybe I wasn't quite paying attention to you. But the board is invited to the meeting on the 19th. Is that right? We have sunshine laws. We're able to go there. Is that right, Counselor?
Probably a good idea if we separated ourselves at the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't sit next to me, Charles.
Got-
Just one
Barry, don't
other-
sit next to me.
Just one other point of comment that I agree with exactly, what was already been said, but I think there needs to be some emphasis as well with regard to the public about our need for recharge in this district. Jacksonville could cut all their pumps off and we still have a problem. So there's a misconception that Jacksonville's pulling all of our water and they're the problem. They're not the whole problem. So being able to communicate that in a way that the public understands that and that we're looking out after their interest in this district and not trying to take a problem away from Jacksonville.
Thank you, Mr. Laird.
All righty. Any other questions for Hugh?
I'll make a statement.
All righty.
Charlie Keith's been right for the past few years since I've been on this board. We need a much larger slice of that pie for public outreach in our budget.
Amen.
I see you, Pam.
Yes, it is very important to get the truth out in front of everybody and educate, especially on something like this. It just kind of gets a
I got one more
extra
comment,
flag.
too.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair. I agree with Mr. Smith because he, like me and probably everybody else, we have probably answered the phone over 100 times apiece in the last couple of weeks. So more outreach would really help all of us too. Because it's distracting and we're board members, so we field the calls. But with more education in the community, I think would help us as board members too. Be able to point to something and say, here it is. Now, I know Caitlin's provided me with a lot of information that I've distributed at different places from Tallahassee down. But it would help us as board members because I know each one of us individually has had plenty of phone calls. And it would help us too.
The other issue, though, for you guys, the two memos that I've got emailed, wonderful, wonderful. The issue is there's so much misinformation on social media that you guys are battling against, and I know it's an uphill battle for that. And it's all about algorithms and everything else, and people, no matter what side of the argument that you're on, get what the algorithm wants them to hear. And it's hard to break through with truth. And that's the reason why we got to figure out a way to either write op-eds or whatever to get more of our information out there because we can't rely on social media to get it out there for us. It's a misnomer. I know it's a good way to get a lot of contact and a lot of people moving around, but the problem is we're fighting an uphill battle against algorithms and a whole bunch of other stuff again, and I think the reason why we're seeing so much information that's not accurate.
Right.
Okay, information out there that's not accurate or based on emotion or a whole bunch of other stuff is because of those algorithms that we can't control. And so we got to continue to put that information. And I think the meeting on the 19th is going to be wonderful for that. And I know it's going to give an opportunity for people to air out their grievances and their concerns, but also it's going to give us opportunity. Hopefully they have ears to hear and eyes to see the truth of what's happening out there.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just to piggyback on that, I'd like to thank you all for your comments on the board. We're tasked with a lot of responsibility as stewards of a resource that's used for many things. It's public health and safety, economic impact, communities. I mean, it's a very big task and picture to look at here. And fear spreads quickly. It's much easier to make us all afraid, right? So when I hear words used like wastewater injected into the aquifer, that isn't anything what we're doing here. That's nothing. It's not a fair description. I wish there was a way to call that out, but it does take time, and it takes some resources, and fully support of providing that to our staff to continue to put out the good information and the good science and the data that we are basing these decisions on.
Thank you. All right. Any other item for Hugh?
All right, thank you.
All right,
Madam
thank you, sir. Do we have a workshop today? Okay. See it in our agenda. So I think that wraps us up. Unless there's any other comment on anything the board would like to discuss today. And if there isn't, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Sorry? We don't have, yep, go ahead. Quick, go ahead.
Y'all stimulated a lot of thought. The last comment on the misinformation, I'm sure there's some that think just straight wastewater is going in the aquifer. No, none of us that are paying attention believe that. What we know for a fact that there's a great percentage, from 20 to 80% of the forever chemicals and hormones and pharmaceuticals and all the other toxins are going to remain in the water no matter what y'all do. All right, because they're not going to distill it or reverse osmosis process. So what he said, let them distill the St. Johns River water and then pump it in here. That'd be a good idea. But so, no, sir, it's not misinformation. We're clear that it's going to be filtered twice. Treatment facility that does not, they're under fines now, I think, or have been recently for not doing what they're supposed to do. They're going to do it, you can pump it into 6 or 8 wetland locations, and that's going to filter out some of the organic materials, but the forever chemicals and all the other things, that toxins, they're going into our wastewater or into our drinking water. So when you say it's treated wastewater, two different attempts to get some of it out, but the fact is you're gonna poison our drinking water. Somebody said something about those flock cameras. Please, some of y'all, 1 or 2 of y'all, the lawyer, write it down. On those, the cell phone ping situation where the law enforcement was using the cell towers to trace people. Well, look, in Carpenter versus USA, the Supreme Court of the United States requires a warrant now for cell phone companies to turn over the records where a user has traveled. It's a Fourth Amendment violation. And these flock cameras are even more, they infringe more on our Fourth Amendment. So eventually they're going to be shut down. So us spending all that money on that, we're wasting because they're going to be withdrawn. One other thing I didn't say about putting the sign out there, I've slipped. If you would put on there, or not put on the sign, but if you would allow the meeting to start at 9:15, because those, if you imagine, those that come here that didn't get the information and they see the sign, oh crap, it starts at 9 o'clock over there. Well, if we could start the meeting at 9:15 instead of 9.
Madam Chair,
Starts
may I
at 6. Go ahead.
respond? The meeting, you're referring
I
to the
mean, at
meeting on the
6.
19th, Mr.
Yes,
Kepler?
at 6:15.
That meeting, similar to what it was scheduled to occur here time-wise, it'll be out there at 6 o'clock.
Right, but if you
Evening.
started it at 6:15 to allow those that come here anyway to travel to the new location, that would probably be helpful, right?
I think we've got enough information already out that
Okay.
at 6 o'clock, we don't want to confuse everyone.
And on what I was speaking to on that, it's not just the word Jacksonville or the JEA that's concerning us. It's the fact that all those chemicals will remain in the water. And we do realize that SB 64 in 2021 and FS 403 in 2023 requires them to do something else with that water by 2032. And the control that this board, I heard that this board don't have any control. You do, your vote. Y'all can stop it. Y'all are the only ones that possibly will stop it. So if it's going to be stopped, I'm looking at the ones that'll stop it. If it goes forward, I'm looking at the ones that allow it to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, did we adjourn?
Make the motion that we adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. All right, Matilda, it is 10:21, and we do not have a